In this video, I'm going to go through mixing vocals to a 2-track instrumental, but before we get started, my name is Ed, you're watching Stokes Sounds, and if you like this video, please make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment too. And if you want to support the channel, feel free to head over to our website, stokesounds.com, where you will see we have vocal presets, templates, masterclasses, as well as the Stokes Sound podcast. Let's get into this video. I've got a track here by Brooklyn Wire. I will leave the final release in the description below for you guys to check out, but let's just have a listen to what we're dealing with.
Giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. Filled right to the top, you know I'm supplying. Man, I can't lie, had me thinking you're the one that I could try. She was giving off wifey vibes, she a 10 out of 10 on a bad day. Cause she knows just what I like.
So let's check out what I did here with Brook's vocals. So I've got his main vocal here, which goes to a Brook bus, which is where I'm going to do all my vocal processing. There is auto-tune printed onto the stem. I did do that, and then I ran it through RxD Click just because of the artifacts I was getting from auto-tune. For some reason, certain songs, there's just more pops and clicks when you use auto-tune on certain singers. So to avoid all of the pops and clicks and stuff, I just decided to just print it on and then run it through RxD Click. So the lead vocal then goes to a lead vocal bus, which I've named Brook, and then I process everything onto that bus, and then I can process things individually if I feel like I want to on an individual track. But the main vocal bus is Brook. If we take a look at the lead vocal itself, I'll play it with processing on and processing off.
Giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. Filled right to the top, you know I'm supplying. Man, I can't lie, had me thinking you're the one that I could try.
So you can hear there is a bit of a volume difference. That's just coming from the compressor, but you can see it's kind of warmer, it's brighter, and it's a little bit more in your face. Let's take a look at the processing that I did on Brook's vocal. First up, we've got a de-esser. I'm just using the Waves de-esser. That's just controlling any S's, any of the sharp kind of things that are horrible to the ear that just kind of poke out. I'm just controlling that before I go into my first compressor, which is the Waves R compressor. I'm just using that just to kind of tame the vocal. He recorded this himself. He didn't have an outboard compressor, so the vocal was a little bit jumpy for my liking, and so by using this R compressor, I'm just leveling out everything. I'm still keeping the dynamics there. I'm not compressing a lot.
She's giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night.
It's just a couple of dB, and it just tames everything in before I go into my first EQ. And this EQ here, I'm just doing my filtering, just taking out frequencies I don't like. There was a lot of bottom end. He doesn't need it in his vocal. He's singing in a higher key, so there is just no need to have all of this. And I just took out certain frequencies that I didn't like.
Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly. Man, I can't lie, had me thinking she's giving off what be picking her up.
Then I go into my second compressor, not doing much compression to this. I'm doing probably 1 or 2 dB, but this compressor has a lot of brightness. So I'm using the harmonic saturation of this compressor and this plugin to kind of push my vocals forward into the mix and make them a little bit brighter. If we listen to this on and off.
She's giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. You
can see that's changing that vocal drastically. It's making the vocal come forward, and it's adding a really nice smooth top end, and that's why I go to this compressor. Then we've got the Waves Factory Spectre. I absolutely love this plugin. This is boosting frequencies with saturation. So it acts as like a traditional EQ, but instead of boosting volume within the EQ, I'm boosting saturation. And here I just wanted to add some more body and some more brightness to the vocal. So if we listen with it on and off.
She's giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. It's
subtle, but it's just kind of doing some slight tonal shaping that I felt that was best for this recording. Then I go into my favorite additive EQ for vocals, and that is the Marg EQ. It has such a nice top end, and here I'm just boosting 20k, 6 dB. So if we listen to what that's doing.
Giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising.
And as you can hear, it's just giving me that kind of bright pop sheen that's really popular on vocals. And I always feel like the Marg does such a good job at that. So I always tend to lean into this plugin to get that bright sound. Then I go into the Arvox, one of these plugins that I use on every single vocal mix. I don't know exactly how it works. It does something, but it just makes the vocal just sit right forward in the track. A lot of pop tracks, especially like this, the vocals are kind of really up front and in your face. And And one way to achieve that is obviously volume, but the other way is using RVox. It just lifts all of the frequencies out of the voice and just sits it on top of the mix. And I absolutely love this plugin, so therefore I used it. So if we listen to it on and bypass.
She's giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. Filled right to the top, yeah, you know I'm supplying.
Makes a massive difference to me. It just makes the vocal kind of sit in the pocket a lot better. And then I've got my final EQ, and I would have done this kind of towards the end of the mix. So if there was a frequency that was standing out along with the instrumental, because everything's in context, I would have taken it out, and here I decided to take out around 11K. It sounds like this. You can hear there's that really kind of high, horrible sound. That could have been, again, from the room, could have been from the mic, could have been from multiple things. But again, this would have been something that I would have done kind of last in the mix that I felt like was annoying to my ear. And that's why I've taken it out. And then we've got our main sends. We've got a plate and a slap. I kept this very simple. The plate we have is an EMT 140, and then that is EQ'd as well. So I just take the low end out and the high end. Again, I don't like low end in reverb. I think it muddies up the mix. And I also don't really like a lot of high end in reverb. I think it can sound a bit cheap. This kind of makes it sound really nice and warm, and it tucks it into the track. So if we listen with the reverb on and off.
Yeah, she was giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising.
So it's just given a really nice space around the vocal, and I decided to use a plate just because a plate is a little bit brighter sounding, and I just felt his vocal works best with a plate for this song. And then I've got a slap delay. I'm just using the Repeater by Slate Digital. Great plugin. I'm just doing some filtering if we listen to what the slap's doing.
She was giving off wifey vibes. Didn't need a side piece, I'd be picking her up in the middle of the night. Left hand on the wheel, had Kelly on my right, sit tight, had me high, had me rising. Filled right to the top, yeah, you know I'm supplying. Man, I can't lie, had me thinking you're the one that I could try.
Again, the slap delay is just giving me movement within the vocal. It's more of a feel thing than, you don't really hear it, you feel it. It just thickens up the vocal and makes it sit nicely into the backing track. If we take a look at the other tracks that are here, these would have been chops that I would have taken out the lead vocal and added certain effects on to make it interesting in the mix. If we look at what we've got here, so that with the lead vocal.
Supplying, man, I can't lie, had me thinking you're the one that I could try.
Again, I'm creating feeling. We've got more here.
I know your game, but I don't care.
With the lead.
I know your game, but I don't care.
I'm just using Valhalla delay, hi-fi setting, just play around. I was just experimenting. Personally, again, it's a workflow thing. I like to drag audio files down from the lead vocal and just kind of create my effects with the actual audio clip itself instead of doing the automation. I do like automation, but I just feel like I can be a little bit more creative when I drag things down, experiment and try things that work within the track. It just makes it easier for me, so I did it like that. Then I've got another delay here, which is the Valhalla delay in a different mode. I've got the BBD setting, again, eighth and quarter. We listen to that with the lead vocal.
Had me thinking you're the one that I could try. Had me thinking you're the one that I could try.
You can see it's just all about adding movement in the song. I'm just trying to add interest to the listener. If you listen to that within context.
Had me thinking you're the one that I could try. Had me thinking you're the one that I could try. Had me thinking you're the one that I could try. Had me thinking you're the one that I could try.
I'm just using space that I had in the mix. He was singing and then there was a gap, and in that gap I just decided to fill it with a delay. You could do anything, you could do it musically, but because it was to a 2-track, I decided to make use of his vocal instead of from the instrumental. Then we go to his harmonies. The harmonies have the same processing on as the lead in this case. I don't always do that. If we have a look at what we've got going on the harmonies.
Sheesh. I'ma give you a cup.
So when I said earlier about I will do most of the processing on the bus, in this case, I decided to do some processing on the individual track. And for instance, I used a phone effect because I just wanted to have this audio only affected. And so that's why I did it on the track and not the bus. So it's still going through all the processing that I have on the backing vocal bus, which is the same as the lead vocal bus in this instance, but it just has the effect on the individual. So it's not affecting these two up here. So if we listen to that in the track.
I'ma give you a cup. I'ma give you a cup.
Again, it's just adding interest. Then if we take a look at the rap, it is also Brooke doing the rap, and so it is similar settings because, it's the same singer. There was no need to kind of redo a whole new vocal chain for this instance because it worked with what I already had created with his singing. There is some slight differences, but we'll go through that now. So this is the rap.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the best I ever had. Shorty, naughty, she bad. It's a shame you're trying to take peace from my hands.
So if we play this processed and unprocessed.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the best I ever had. Shorty, naughty, she bad. It's a shame you're trying to take peace from my hands.
So you can see there's quite a big difference there. So if we take a look at what we did, I did some de-essing, did some compression, some EQ, same compressor. I didn't add any low end in the rap because I felt like the rap already had low end, and that was because before he was singing in a higher tone, and so it needed that low end to support that, and because he's talking deeper, he doesn't need that low end in the vocal, so that's why there's none there on the Spectre. Marg EQ again, RVox to bring it forward, and here a little bit of different EQ shaping. That would have just again been towards the end of the mix. If I felt like there was a frequency that was poking out on the rap when playing it with the instrumental, I would have gone to my EQ at the end of the vocal chain and just did kind of some notches. So if we take a look at what those are doing,
maybe even my first peace from my hands.
again, just certain frequencies that would have come from the mic or the room that I just felt like didn't need to be in the track. I didn't like it. It wasn't adding anything good. Me personally, I tend to subtract more than I do additive. I feel like if I take things away, what I want to increase kind of automatically gets increased. If I just keep increasing things like increasing brightness, increasing reverb, everything just kind of gets a bit too washy. So I prefer to kind of subtract a little bit more than I do add. After the main rap vocal part, I added some plate and slap. Again, same as the lead, just to get it in the pocket, get it into the same space that the lead vocal was in, so everything sounded like it was coming from the same place. And then I did a similar thing here with effects again. I decided that the rap needed some more movement within the verse, so if you listen to the rap here,
vibe, she a 10 out of 10 on a bad day, cause she knows just what I like. Come bring yourself over to my place. Red lips, green eyes, brown skin, big thighs.
you can see there's added movement there, and by that I'm creating more emotion. I'm just using the repeater, it's on a dotted 16th note, going into some reverb. If we look at what that is actually doing,
Bad day.
Again, just filling space, adding movement to where I feel like it fits within the track. It's always about feel. It's always about what works. You could have done something different, but in this instance, the day that I mixed it, I felt like doing that, so I did that. So if we take a look at how I processed a 2-track instrumental to get the vocal to fit into the pocket, you'll see that I've taken it down by minus 9.4 dB, and that's because whenever I get 2-track instrumentals through, they're always completely limited or mastered, and they're already kind of hitting -6, -8 LUFS, and so for me to then put a vocal on top of that, it's just really not good gain staging. So what I do is I leave my vocal at 0 to get it to where I'm happy, and then I bring down the backing track so that the vocal is sitting on top of the instrumental, and it kind of gives me my right gain staging in my workflow, so I know that I'm not going to be fighting at the end with a limiter or getting the vocal to sit on top of this 2-track and then it just completely clipping and distorting because it's so loud to begin with. So I take it down, in this instance minus 9.4 dB, then I've got the headroom. So as you can see here, I'm using mid-side EQ, and that's because I don't have all of the stems. I've just got the 2-track, so it allows me to go further in detail to get the vocals to sit better within the 2-track mix. So first up, I'm using some mid-side processing on the low end. I felt like there was too much bottom end in the mids, so I took some low end out. And then here I've got some 2 stereo notches, so they're affecting both the sides and the mids, and they're just frequencies that I felt like were clogging up the mix, frequency masking the vocals, and just frequencies that I just felt were not needed. And so I took them out. And then at the top here, you'll see that the vocals sit around this area, and so to get the vocals to sit in the pocket better, I just used the mids again because the vocal is vocal is mono, so it's going to be in the mono of the stereo spectrum. So I decided to take the mids out of the backing track, and then that way the vocal would sit nicely on top and it would fit in the pocket perfectly. So that's what I did there. So if we just solo each band and look at how it sounds. And then because I was taking frequencies out, I also wanted to keep the attack. I wanted to get the kick in that snare to kind of punch through and it feel like I wasn't taking things away, making it a bit more kind of mellow and not as hard hitting. So I decided to use a transient designer for this, and this just gave me the attack and it gave me definition in the instrumental, which is what I was looking for. Very, very subtle stuff, but it goes a long way. And then the last plugin was Center by Waves, and I'm just pushing the sides up by 0.5 dB, and it just makes that vocal just sit in the pocket better because I'm kind of widening up the backing track, and the vocal is still mono, it's still center, so it just makes the vocal get more defined within the 2-track instrumental and the overall mix. And so I'm just doing very, very subtle stuff and just pushing that out. Very, very subtle. Then let's take a look at what I'm doing on the mix bus. This is affecting now the instrumental and the vocal as one. So first up, I've got some EQ. I'm just doing 26k boost of 2 dB and 12% of stereo widening. It's just kind of giving me a little bit more width and a little bit more brightness to the overall sound of the track. Then I've got some compression. This would only be doing about max 2 dB of compression. It's just gluing the vocal and the instrumental together.
You know I'm supplying, man I can't lie. I've been thinking you're the one that I could try.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even have my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the best I ever had. Shorty, notice she bad. It's a shame I trying to take beats from my...
Then I go into some ozone, and I'm using the dynamics feature. This would be to control the low end. You'll hear that there's that 808 that was poking through, and I always felt like that 808 was really loud in the mix. So I controlled it with my mid-side processing EQ, which you can see here, and then I also controlled it all together as one with the dynamics in ozone. Very, very subtle, probably max 1 or 2 dB.
You know I'm supplying, man I can't lie. I've been thinking you're the one that I could try.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even have my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the...
Then I go into a clipper. This is a great clipper. I absolutely love the T-Rex clipper. It just gives me really nice kind of saturation as well as loudness as well. So if we take a look at what I'm doing, again, it will be a 1 dB max.
You know I'm supplying, man I can't lie. I've been thinking you're the one that I could try.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even have my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the best I ever had. Shorty, notice she bad. It's a shame I trying to take beats from my hands.
Again, not doing loads, but it's doing enough to give me a little bit more volume, and it's kind of taking off those transients of the kick and the snare. If it gets a little bit too much, it's just cutting them off. And then I go into my final limiter, and this is just me bringing it up to commercial volume. As I mentioned, because I brought the instrumental down, I've then got to lift that back up with the vocal to where it's going to be kind of at competitive volume level. So if we take a look at where I'm hitting,
you know I'm supplying, man I can't lie. I've been thinking you're the one that I could try.
Yo, thought you're the one I could take my chance with. Maybe even have my first dance with. Fuck it, you're the best I ever had. Shorty, notice she bad.
Doing about 5 dB of gain reduction. It's a little bit more than I usually would do, but I felt like this track needed it. I decided to use the all-round style. It was working well. 0.1, again, just so I don't do any kind of clipping going out. Digital clipping is not very nice. True peak limiting on. Again, this is going straight out to Spotify, so that's why I did that. And that is basically the whole mix. And then I just have a couple of analyzers that I feel like I need for me that works with my gain staging, and if I need to reference anything, and to check my volume level. And in this case, we went to around -9 integrated LUFS. So if we take a look with this mix bus processing on and off, you'll see what it's doing.
All the triggers, just a figure of speech, of course. You know she like Christian Dior. If I don't copy, you know she ain't with me no more. See,
I know your game, but I don't care.
Come show me some love. You tease me enough is enough. You made me come out my shell. I'ma give you my...
Pretty standard for this sort of stuff. And that's it. That's how I mix vocals to a 2-track instrumental. Please don't forget to hit the like button. And if you've got any questions, make sure that you leave them in the comments. I'll make sure that I answer them. And I'll see you all again next week for another video.